What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm gonna be talking about how to hire a killer closer. This is something I'm super passionate about because a killer closer can literally change your business. And if you hired a lemon, what to do next? Now, the reason why this is important is let's just say you're a founder doing founder-led sales and you're pulling in 30K per month in new deals. Maybe you have a closer doing this. If you can find yourself a killer closer who's doing this full time, there's no reason they couldn't be bringing in that much, if not more per month, meaning you and that closer can now be bringing in 60K per month. That means the opportunity cost for a lot of you not being able to find a great closer who can close at your level is literally not being able to double the business. Think about that. And I've talked to a lot of clients that know this logically, but then they say, no one can close like me, or I wouldn't know where to find them. And they use that as an excuse. And that's exactly what it is. When the math is clear, you're just not going to be able to scale to 6 figures a month and beyond for the most part without bringing on a closer, without being able to build a sales team. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. How to bring on a great closer, how to know if you hired a lemon, and what to do next, because unfortunately the cost of a mishire there can be pretty huge. If you guys are new here, my name is Dan Crowley. I'm one of the co-founders at Ascension and ListKit. Yes, this is a watch and a whoop. I'm an optimizer now. Anyways, we're pulling in over $1 million a month. I've taken thousands of sales calls. I've built killer sales teams. I've built multiple 6-figure a month businesses from the ground up. So let's get into it. First point, what do I need to hire a closer? And it's not as much as you think. So just start now. Everyone's heard hire slow, fire fast, but hire slow doesn't mean drag your feet. You should treat talent pipelines like a sales pipeline. You wouldn't want to wait to start prospecting just because you don't have everything figured out, every fine detail, or at least you shouldn't. Just, grow up, start slinging some deals. Hire slow means don't rush your decision when evaluating talent, which means you need to have the talent to evaluate. You should be starting right now, go get as many interviews as possible. But bare minimum, what do you have to have in place? You got to have a sales process that's already working at the level that you'd want a closer to perform at. If not, focus on that. You need to have a script, call recordings of closes by the time they're onboarding. So even if you don't have the best script in the world, once again, that's something that you can handle a week later when they're onboarding. You need to have a closer scorecard. This actually is really important because you're presenting it on the first interview, which I'll break down the interview process in a bit. But this just includes like the compensation structure, OTE, outline of the role, responsibilities, KPIs, time commitment, time zone you're looking for, expectations, just like the basic stuff so they can see, okay, this is the role on just a 1-page Google sheet. Like this is what it is. This is what's expected, all that great stuff. And you need to have an application. And I think a lot of people don't understand how to have an effective application, because it shouldn't just be something that like, okay, everybody just submits the same thing and we can't really get much out of it until the first interview. It's a massively inefficient use of your time. So first things first, do not allow people to simply submit a resume, because the laziest people in the world can and will put together a resume and spam it across a ton of companies. And it also doesn't tell you that much, right? I've interviewed hundreds, I said 100 plus people here, but it's probably in the 200s at this point. And there's people who have worked at great companies that just surprisingly don't seem competent at all. And there's people that have worked at companies I've never heard of that end up being killers. Still, have a place for them to submit their resume, because if somebody was a top closer for consulting.com for years and you sell coaching, yeah, you should probably interview that person, but there's much more to a good application. First things first, I like to have a short video at the top of my application. And the reason why is you're going to have a longer application than a lot of people if you're following the steps I'm talking about here. So the person's going to have to put in work. So it's not a bad idea to have a quick video to sell them on the company, on the opportunity. You're basically selling them on putting in that work, because the last thing you want, and I'm not saying that all A players would do this, but it is potential. There are people that could just be feeling lazy and they don't know you that much because they kind of just heard about you from a friend and they just click off because they're like, I'm not doing all that, right? If you have a good video that can sell them on this, they're pumped up about the opportunity, they'll go through it. It can also be a really good filter to talk about things that are, specifically for your offer. Like, hey, I'm looking for people who have closed at least 100K per month on a high ticket coaching program, or I'm looking at people that have specifically sold this type of service, or I'm looking for a woman who can sell in PST hours, whatever it may be. It's just good to talk a little bit more about like the qualitative details that you're looking for. Now, sales has a lot of metrics, and this is a really nice thing for the application process, that are the same throughout tons of offers. So you'd be stupid not to ask about them. Ask about cash collected, ask about their close rate, ask about their quota attainment if they're in a more corporate role. Ask about their position on the sales team. Were they first? Were they worse? Whatever. I don't need closers who have closed on the same offer I'm selling, but I am looking for previous success coming into the role, because especially if you're selling high ticket agency, coaching, SaaS, like remote sales where people have to close on the call, and it's important that they're comfortable asking for the sale on the call. If they're not comfortable with that, that's one of those traits where some people just never seem to be able to develop it. Some people learn it, but a little bit slowly. Like I'd rather them just learn that on somebody else's dime and know that, okay, this person's coming into this and they're comfortable saying, okay, I'm ready for the card number and going for the close right there. This is why I've never hired a setter into a closing role. I'd rather them, once again, find that skill elsewhere. Now, although experience on the same offer is not a requirement, industry acumen in general is a huge plus. That almost is a requirement because 90% of the closers I've hired have understood the business we're in by the time they showed up to the first call, which is huge just because the learning curve is so much shorter. A lot of our closers at Client Ascension have owned agencies before, been business owners before, and understand the agency model because they've worked with agencies before. I'm not saying they need to understand your service on an implementation level, but they should understand at a high level how it works and why it's important. For the other 10% of closers I've hired, to be fair, I actually have had success, but the onboarding was way more intensive on my side. They were super hard workers, which is why I hired them and gave them a chance. And one of them was a good friend of mine, but the learning curve was longer. They had way more questions. They didn't ramp up as quickly, but they still ramped up quick enough to not get fired. So I'd be a hypocrite if I said never ever do this, but just know what you're getting yourself into. It's going to be a lot more of a time investment on your end. Now, make sure they've been through sales training previously because there are millions and millions and millions of people who have, whether it's a training from their previous company, Sandler training, Cole Gordon, Jeremy Miner, Bill Walsh, whatever it is. Personally, I'm not married to like one specific sales training saying like, oh, Cole Gordon's the best or Jeremy Miner's the best. I actually prefer people that come in with an open mind because I have my own process and way of doing things. But I do like to see that they've gone through something to understand the fundamentals of sales, the importance of discovery, the pitch, objection handling, just like the basics. Once again, this is just dramatically going to shorten the learning curve because I like to optimize everything for a quick onboarding process. Still, I make my own internal sales team training though, as I just mentioned, and that's not as intimidating as you think. Just consists of call recordings and closes, a few videos on sales that aligns with how you want them to be selling and how you think about sales in general, what works for your offer. Just grab a couple good videos off of YouTube, your script, and Loom videos breaking down your script, like what to look for in each part. Because as you know, a script isn't a script as if you're an actor. You're not like reading off of that. It has like specific parts of a call. It's more like the anatomy of a call as opposed to word for word what you need to say. Now, this is probably the most important. Like honestly, this is the best thing in the world. Have the applicant submit a Loom video because you could tell so much from a simple video. You could tell how they communicate. Do they have a decent camera, mic? How do they present themselves? Like this is easily the best filtering mechanism for the first step, which is application to call one. Like if I get 30, 40 applicants, I'm immediately going to be left with like 10 or 12 people that I'd even want to speak to and have an open mind about. It's amazing. Now, make the video prompt something that could only be said about your offer. A lot of times I'll just throw in like a question like, or a prompt like, hey, include a funny story of something that happened to you on a call, or, talk about like our company and what you've been able to gather from the website. Just that way you kind of know similar to resume. It's not people that have just been like submitting this video over and over on a ton of different offers. Bonus tip, if you've got good applicant flow, make the video optional and you're going to see who really wants to roll. Odds are if they're not willing to go above and beyond the interview process, they're just not going to go above and beyond in onboarding, especially in a commission-based role. So it's like, cool, another good filtering mechanism. Now we have the application. We have the scorecard. We're ready for interviews. Where do we actually find these people? And similar to client acquisition, you may just need one good channel, right? And you can scale that thing, or you may need to try a few. But to hire a closer, I typically need like 20 plus solid applicants. I'd say 20 is like the minimum for me, which is people that are going through my application, not just people who have sent me an email or doing a one-click apply with a resume. It's like people that have filled out the application with everything above. Now, the first place I recommend that everyone starts is their network. And the number one concern that I get is, I don't know if I have a big enough network. I don't have a lot of social media followers, or I don't know if the type of person I want is in my network. Maybe I'm looking for a female and most of my network is male. I'm telling you, if you do this right, 90% of the time, you will be pleasantly surprised. Now that you have your application, like the goal is just blast it fucking everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I don't care if you have like 20 followers on one of these platforms, just share it. You never know what's going to come of it. Now, you can also share it in the communities you're in. That's part of your network. So if you're in a Client Ascension or another coaching program or some random Telegram group with other agency owners or other coaching owners, share it in there. Reach out to industry peers. You kind of have to be a weirdo if you know nobody else that's running a business similar to you or can't get their contact information. Reach out to them, see if they know anybody that'd be a good fit for the role. Happy clients. That's easy, low hanging fruit. The ones that actually like you, just share this and be like, hey, we're looking to hire. You never know what comes. Actually, I've had multiple clients that have become closers as well. Good employees offer incentives as well. I'm not saying if you're a small company, you have to do a big giant bonus, but yeah, like if somebody makes it to step 2 in the interview process, throw them a $20 Starbucks gift card. Like that stuff will be enough for them to have like this minor inconvenience of reaching out to their friend they think could be a good closer. But it literally just takes 1 hour of dedicated work. And this is what I'm talking about with pleasantly surprised. Like I tell these guys, like come back to me after you've spent 1 hour of dedicated work to just reach out to anyone in any of these buckets I just talked to see if somebody may be a good fit. What do you know? A few days later, people come back. But in general, the reason why I love hiring for my network, number one, above all else, is because there's a level of loyalty, admiration for the company, and just understanding that comes along with it. Meaning like they're more likely to have industry acumen or more likely to want to work at my company specifically. And the reason why that's important is because if you're in a commission-based role, it takes someone who cares enough to go through the onboarding in the first few calls where they don't have it all figured out and they're putting in a ton of work before getting paid at all. Like, people in your network are just more likely to go through those bumps in the roads because, like I said, they know you, they know the company, or they know the friend that recommended them. Now, because I want as many applications as possible, I'm also leveraging other talent pools. I'm not just stopping there. And here's some other valuable talent pools. Train communities. It's been a really good one for me. There's tons of sales training communities out there. I could name like 15 different people that I see on Instagram constantly. Like, reach out to those people, tell them about your offer, tell them that you're hiring, because a lot of these people want their students that pay them for sales training or have joined their free group to be placed on a good offer and make money, because that's a success story for them. So if you can say, hey, I'm at 50K a month, my offer's really good, I'm closing at 50%, I can't take any more calls, I have good lead flow, share this. They're just gonna be like, okay, great. Billy over here who went through my program could probably close for you, and awesome. And a lot of times we'll do that for free. I don't pay anybody to do this. I just reach out to different community owners. A lot of them will share for free. Now, the pro is that they're guaranteed to have been through some sales training. So you don't have to worry about them having zero sales training, which, like I said, should be a requirement. The con is many good closers have no problems finding a role. So if they have to rely on the community owner giving them something, it's kind of a bad sign. But there's also a lot of luck at play here. You can find, killers who are in between roles or on a role that they don't love. Like, that's super common. That's why you can still find really good people inside of here. Second, staffing agencies that obviously focus on sales specifically. Similar to communities, a lot of these guys provide training as well. Now, the pro is you have a lot more control if you're paying a staffing agency on the type of candidate that you get. Like, you could say, I want enterprise experience, agency sales experience, whatever you're looking for. Con, they charge money. But like I said, this could be you finding a killer closer, the thing that doubles, triples, quadruples your business here. Last, job boards. I don't like them. LinkedIn and Indeed are great for volume. Like, you'll get a shit ton of applicants just by posting on there, especially for closers. Like, closer is a very easy role to hire for. There's so much, I don't know. I think it's honestly just salespeople who run communities like this who say this. It's like, oh, there's like a shortage of closers. Like, maybe there's a shortage of good closers, but no, there's tons of demand out there. Everybody wants to be a closer. 90% of them are on offers they hate. So it's easy to get a lot of these applicants, but the big issue is that they're typically looking at 100 other roles. Like, they don't know you from the next company at all. A lot of times by the time they get to the first call, they barely remember who you are. Like, personally, I've never hired anyone from this pool, but I have taken interviews. A couple tips here. Don't put too much stock into the talent pool that the person came from. Like I said, I have my preference on where I'll start first, but by the time they go through the application, I'm basically treating the application as level ground, equal merit. I'm just looking at the application itself. Now, in terms of demographics, like the type of people that you hire, just don't stray too far from who your ICP is. Like, if you're selling in America, probably best to hire an American. If you're selling exclusively to women, probably best to hire a woman. You kind of get the picture here. Just don't think, oh, I can, arbitrage this with a $2,000 a month hire from India and it's going to go well. Now, quick pause. If you're a business owner who's looking to hire a killer closer, that's something that we can help with. Our Olympia program is designed to help you scale your company to multiple six figures a month. And I personally help build the sales team that's required to do it. Like our client, Nick, who's able to scale to $200,000 in monthly revenue. Click the link below to get a free case study on how Olympia transforms business. Now, let's get into how to hire the right closer specifically. So this is basically how you have a winning interview process. And similar to a sales script, this is something you should work on to effectively make sure that we're weeding out the right people at the right stage and we're ending up with the right person. So this isn't something that's set in stone. Like I said, I want 20 solid applicants. And if I get that, at least there'll usually be about 8 that I actually want to invite to the first interview. But what does that interview actually look like? The first interview is basically do I want to work with you? Do you want to work with me? And are the vibes right? I personally like working a lot. I mean, I'm filming this thing at 1:12 in the morning, but I enjoy doing this stuff. And a lot of it is because I enjoy the people that I work with. Now, I'm not saying you have to be best friends with the person or don't hire somebody who's older than you that has good experience. But yeah, I want to be able to hold a conversation with the person and not just be what the fuck? It feels like I'm talking to a brick wall, right? But anyways, if I want to work with them, and usually I'm using some regular interview questions to determine if I want to. And usually the interview questions they're based on competence, right? So I also ask them why they left each of their offers too, which is super important, I think, in sales, because nowadays you have a lot of offer hoppers. I want to be wary of offer hoppers. So whenever I'm talking through different roles that they've been in, I'm asking them specifically hey, what made you leave that role? Why did you get let go? I'm seeing if they have good answers to that. But anyways, here's some non-boring first interview questions. Walk me through your last 90 days on this role like it's a P&L. Calls taken, show rate, close rate, average cash collected, what you were paid. I'm seeing how they respond and seeing if they actually pay attention to their KPIs. And a follow-up to that is hey, Like, where do you track that? Like, is there a screenshot that you can pull? I don't actually need these guys to come up with proof, but I want them to actually like have a decent enough answer to know that they're not just pulling shit out of their ass. Now, another question, tell me about a deal that you should have closed and didn't. What was the reason? Hey, and what did you change next week because of that? Another good question would be like, okay, are they self-aware enough to be able to diagnose their own problems? Because it's a huge part of closing. And what did they change? They just let the problem persist, or they actually work on it? What's a piece of feedback a manager gave you that pissed you off at first, but was true? Another great sales question. If I watched 10 of your calls, what would be a repeatable structure I'd see every time? Now, real good closers, they don't just wing it. Like, they have a process that they build on. So another good signal here. What's your follow-up philosophy in one sentence? Hey, give me your exact follow-up sequence if somebody no-shows. What do you do on the call? 24 hours, 72 hours, next 14 days. I could go on and on with all of this stuff. You can ask some hypotheticals, whatever you want. Just ask something that they wouldn't have the answer to already coming into this. That's pretty much the goal. No, like, hey, what's your biggest strength? And what's your biggest weakness when it comes to sales? Like, I used to ask that shit, and I was like, I could not filter anybody out from the first call to the second call. And it was just pissing me off because I was spending way too much time on the second calls as well. Now, if this is somebody I'd potentially like to work with, I'll go through the scorecard, see if this is something that they would like to do as well. And if we're both aligned, then we move on to interview 2. The second interview is always simply just a mock call. And typically, because I'm pretty picky with the applicants I choose to invite to interview 1, there's a high throughput from interview 1 to interview 2. So the field will go from like 8 people down to 5. And the mock call is 100% necessary. I tell this to my clients all the time because sometimes they just fall in love with the closer on the first interview. And the reason why is because even shitty reps tend to interview well. These people identify as outgoing, talkative people a lot of times. They presented themselves well in the Loom video. It's how they ended up on the first interview. But we need to see if they can actually sell. This is also a great opportunity to see if they put in the work to prepare, because between call 1 and call 2, I'm sharing a VSL, I'm sharing a script. So they have some information to go off of. If they're just completely unprepared, don't know anything, can't reference anything that's pretty obvious from the VSL or the script, obviously they're not going to be a good fit here. But from the 5 that I invite to the mock call, at least minimum 1 is going to shy away from the work. They're going to make it up. Hey, I actually got a different role or something, whatever. They're just going to bow out because they didn't want to do the work to actually prepare for this. And of the 4 that you have, 1's going to be clearly unprepared. Don't hire that guy. Of the 3, like, you're going to be lucky if you have 1 or 2 where you're actually like, yeah, I would buy something from this guy. He's pretty darn solid, right? And if you bring on 2, that's not a problem either. But interview 3 is only necessary when you're having a tough time deciding between 2 closers and you only want to bring on 1. So if there is that 3rd interview, which, like I said, is only if necessary, a lot of times I just hire people right after the second one. I'll use that call to ask more questions about their goals, more questions about research they've done on the company. I'll set expectations for onboarding and ramping. I'm going to be conservative, just so it's like expectations low, under promise, over deliver type of deal. And any other questions I need to differentiate between the 2 candidates. And honestly, sometimes it comes down, because it's so dead even, to something as simple as like times they can take the call and like how soon they can start. From there, I make my decision, start onboarding immediately. Now, onboarding and how to know when you actually have a killer. And you can know a lot pretty early on. Like, personally, I like to onboard reps quickly. I give them tons of information on our offer, the script, sales assets, a bunch of call recordings. I meet with them every single day in the onboarding process, but the onboarding process is typically only 4 days for me. And I just throw them in the calendar, like with every other person, or if it's just myself, like equal availability, same lead sources. I don't like any of the slow ramp stuff, or like I'm taking all the warm leads and the closer's taking on the cold leads. Just round robin it. And during the onboarding, obviously, like, I want to see them ripping through everything quickly. They should be like anxious, excited to get on these calls as soon as possible. A couple more killer traits in the onboarding process. They don't only ask questions, they also have ideas on the process. This just means that they're thinking about all of the moving pieces that it takes to close a deal. After onboarding, it's 90% performance, but here's a killer traits I look for early on. At a minimum, they hit half KPI in 2 weeks, and then they hit full KPI in the first month, if they're actually going to be a killer. Right? I've seen some people start slow, but usually they always are getting to half KPI in the first 2 weeks unless I fire them. And then usually the killers, they're going to figure it out. Even if they don't have everything perfect or all the information, they're going to get the full KPI within a month. They don't wing it. Like I said earlier, like, even their mistakes are consistent early on because they have a process. They build on it. Ownership is there immediately. There's never any complaints about lead quality. They talk in math, not feelings. They're not like, hey, Dan, I feel lost, or like, hey, my show rate is at KPI, but my close rate is 10% below where it should be. Can you review a call and just let me know what you're seeing? Even if they're not amazing at objection handling or with their CRM yet, from day one, like, a killer will be a dog when it comes to closing and following up. They've had at least one person, let's say in the first few weeks, that tells them, hey, I'm not buying from you because you're pressuring too much. Like, I feel like this is just way over the top. Like, sorry, Dan, don't want to work with you. That is a great sign. Trust me. And I tell people who are just like too agreeable, people pleasers, they don't push enough, they're not aggressive enough. Like, hey, go out there and piss somebody off today. Because if you never find the line, if you never go past the line and cross that, you're never going to be able to find the line in the first place. So you won't know how to like appropriately go right up to the line going forward and never go past it. They also self-diagnose, like they're reviewing their own calls, they're sharing takeaways that show they're like critically thinking about this stuff outside of just team meetings. Now at scale, here are the main killer traits that I look for. First one, they obsess over cash collected, not just close rate, which is super important. Like they're always trying to collect more cash because this just means they're not just slinging discounts or small deals here and there to hit a KPI to stay on the team. Like they're more focused on making money. Like they're serious about that. They would rather step over, three $1,000 deals to grab a $15,000 deal, even if it affects your close rate negatively. They care about cash collected. They roll up their sleeves when adversity hits. Like things aren't going to be perfect. Shit will hit the fan. But when problems are clear, they don't just ignore them or shut down. They come to you with solutions. They consistently believe that they and the rest of the team that they're on is capable of getting out of trouble, and they work harder during these rough patches. You'll see it naturally. They get angry about stagnation. Like they're honestly like a little bit emotional. Sometimes they'll crash out. Like if they have a down month, the best closers won't just be like, well, January was shit. We'll get them in February. No, they actually get like pissed off. Sometimes they'll say crazy things. Like if the company's not winning, they're not happy. So I'm not just talking about their own performance being stagnant. They're also like angry if they're at a company that's not growing. And if the rest of the team isn't performing, they're annoyed. Obviously, A players don't want to be around a bunch of BC players because it's like, oh, this company just tolerates bullshit. Why would I work here? These things will push you to be a better leader and a better business owner unless they leave before you do. So this is why you're kind of like always on the clock. You need to be always on your shit as a manager because A players will leave. If the company isn't providing them a mission and growth that aligns with an A player, they won't stay put. You can't be upset with this fact because like nothing else would make sense. Like, yeah, it sucks when they leave, but like they will if you don't figure stuff out. Now, I'm not saying they would leave at the drop of the hat. Like I said, that they work harder when adversity comes. Ideally, they're super loyal and a lot of them are, and they're ready to fix problems. But the moment you can't communicate why being part of this company and being in this role specifically is a massive opportunity is the moment they're going to look elsewhere. They also protect your business. This is maybe an unpopular opinion, but the best closers that I've come across, they don't just care about the money. Like they, at some point, I don't know, depends on what your OTE is, but like that money jump from $12,000 a month to $15,000 a month, they're going to realize at some point, even if they're newer to money, like the quality of life isn't changing too much. They actually care about the business. So yeah, they always want to be making more money, but like that's almost secondary to like the team winning, them winning. And they're not going to care about the business as much as you, but you shouldn't have to worry about them doing nefarious shit on calls or signing the world's worst client. Like you trust them to take calls with zero oversight because you know they want the company to win long-term. Once again, like I will die on that hill. They're not just like money, money, money. I'll sign, the worst people in the world. Like, no, they have the best interests of the company at heart. And another quick note before we finish here, something I'm trying new here. If you want the Gamma Doc that I'm presenting right now, just hit the link below, get it for free. But anyways, let's get into how to know if you hired a bad closer and what to do next. Now, a lot of the signs are just the inverse of what I said above. So I won't spend too much time on it, meaning like they don't attack onboarding, they talk in feelings, not math. They complain about lead quality. They'll sling a bunch of tiny fucking little boy deals to hit a KPI. They don't care when their performance dips too much. They're just like, oh, it's not a big deal. I'll get there next. They're not getting like angry or annoyed. Like you get the point, right? But the most dangerous people in your company are not these horrible closers. Cause like anybody can spot that. And if they're like really that bad, if they're doing everything up here, you just fire them, you get rid of them pretty quickly. Like that's not that bad because that won't drag on too much. The most dangerous people in your company are the good culture fits that are extraordinarily average. And here's why, because the distance between an average closer and a killer closer, it's a mile, not a foot. Like it's a wide margin. It's a lot larger than you even think it is. And the people that work just hard enough that just barely get to KPI, some months, maybe they don't. And they become friends with you because they're good culture fits. They're probably cool people. They suck to fire. It's just like a tough part of business. Unless you're just like a maniac who loves just kind of cutting people loose and you get off on that. Like, no, it's tough. So they tend to stick around for a long time because you're kind of doing the bare minimum. You're kind of friends with them. Don't become too close with your employees, by the way. But let's just say an average closer on your offer closes at like $50K a month and a killer closer closes at $100K a month. Like you not finding another killer, if that person stays on for a year, it's costing you $600,000 per year. So just think about it. That's why they're more dangerous than the people who are like horrible, right? So here's some traits to watch out for. They hit KPI sometimes, but they never need a new one. There's a reason why like more corporate companies, if somebody just hits their quota right away, like they'll establish a new quota for them. They'll give them more incentive structures because they break that KPI. They go past it. Like a very average Joe we'll just never do this. So hit KPIs sometimes, never need a new one. They do a test of them, pretty much nothing more. They rely on momentum. Like when things are well and everybody's closing, leads are great, they're closing. But if it's not, if there seems to be a little bit of a downturn and maybe one other person is in a slump or maybe you're in a slump, like they're in a slump right with you. So they have to have that momentum. A great closer, a killer closer, like even if the rest of the team sucks, like they'll still be on their shit. They're very agreeable. So like agreeable people on calls, in team meetings, everywhere, they typically don't make the best closers. They have a tough time holding people accountable at the end of the call. They have a tough time challenging people throughout the call. In meetings, they're not really forthcoming with like new ideas or even challenging your ideas, where if the whole team's shit in the bed, they probably need to be challenged. Like usually the agreeable ones are the ones that kind of fall in this category. They can articulate problems, but they aren't capable of coming up with their own solution, implementing, and then sharing the results with you for zero intervention. So like a average Joe can be like, oh yeah, I'm having a really tough time with my show rate recently. That's it. And then they just kind of rely on you to tell them what to do next. A great closer, a killer closer, will be like, hey, I'm having a tough time with my show rate. I've recently started calling every single person as soon as they book the call. I'm leaving voicemails now. I don't know if people still listen to voicemails, but maybe that will work. And I'll get back to you in the next couple of days to see how that goes without you actually having to do anything. And they never force you to upgrade your systems. Like they're never asking for new stuff in the CRMs or new sequences. They're never asking like if we'd want to change the pre-pitch. Like they're just, oh, whatever it is, like, yep, I'll go do it. And they confuse being liked by the team and by prospects. This goes along with being very agreeable, with being valuable. Like they think like, hey, so long as we're having a good time, like there's no such thing as a personality hire in sales, even though some people are great. And this is how it feels sometimes. Like you can't keep those people around. So don't let them confuse being liked with being valuable. Now, if you have a bad closer, what do you do next? Like I said, if it's one of these people, like who's just horrible, like literal lemon, just fire them immediately. But on an ongoing basis, like how do we actually treat this? And quick caveat, I'm going to say KPI a lot. You should be evolving your KPI over time. Meaning if everybody got hired or this person got hired at a 25% close rate and you see it's relatively easy to hit and you guys have kind of crushed that month over month, like reestablish it. It should now be 30%. It should now be 35%, whatever that is. Like this KPI should not be stagnant by any means. Also, so you can catch a lot of this stuff, because a lot of this stuff up here, it's very qualitative. Like the KPIs are quantitative. Basically everything else is quantitative. You should be able to pick up on this when they're doing a good or bad job with it, because you should be meeting with these people with it like on a regular cadence through a one-on-one. Like you should have one-on-ones at least bi-weekly with your closers. And a lot of times when people are in a slump, it's things that have nothing to do with sales. So that's why that's important. Like you should know a little bit about what's going on in their personal life and how they're showing up energy wise. It shouldn't just be like, I see the KPIs, I see nothing else. Now, what do? If they miss half KPI in the first 20 calls or 2 weeks, whichever comes first, fire immediately. Never keep these people on the team. They will never be a killer closer. They could get to a point where they are an average closer. Like I talked about, that can cost you multiple 6 figures, multiple 7 figures per year. You don't want them on the team. So if they miss half KPI, this is a hard rule for me. I've hired like a good friend, and I even told him coming in, like, hey, dude, I just have this rule. If you don't hit half KPI, meaning if you're at your KPI is a 40% close rate, if they don't hit a 20% close rate in the first 20 calls or 2 weeks, like whatever comes first, we're going to let you go. It's just not going to be a good opportunity for either of us. Now, let's assume they make it through that half KPI. If they miss full KPI in the following month, meaning like they hit half and then a month later, they still haven't gotten the full. So they're 6 weeks into the role. We're going to do a short PIP. That'd be a 2-week PIP. I might make a video on how to do a PIP effectively. This is something where like the last few times now that I've done a PIP, everybody's rebounded phenomenally. So I feel like I do a good job with these, but 2 weeks is about the shortest that you do. Basically, you're going to talk about, hey, this are the expectations set in onboarding. This is what you're doing, but this is what you're not doing. This is what we need to focus on. These are my action items as a manager. These are your action items as a sales guy. And these are the things, these are usually like in this situation, the KPI that you need to get to by this date or else you get fired. And what typically happens is one of 3 things. One, they see the work that's required. They see the writing on the wall. They dip out immediately. Which if they do that, perfect. You don't want them to underperform in the role for even longer. If they get out of there, cool, we'll get on to the next person, right? We don't want a bunch of leads slipping through the cracks that don't need to. 2, they rebound phenomenally. They're like, shit, okay, this is serious. My job's on the line. Let's get after it. And 3, like they put in the work, they got close and they just didn't hit it. You have to be super, super just like, it needs to be like, this is it. This is a hard line. I've actually had the one awkward, like real situation here. The guy was at like a 10% close rate, kind of like in this situation where he hit half KPI, couldn't get the full KPI. And he needed to like aggressively get to like a 30% close rate. in the next 2 weeks. And he rebounded like real well. He probably got to like a 26-27% close rate. He's like, cool, I'm safe. I'm like, no, it's got to end there. And I have no regrets about it, because once again, you just have to kind of have these rules inside of your head that, have been developed by many people before me. Like I've taken sales training courses and have many coaches like this, and just something that I'm making up here. Now, if they hit KPI consistently, then miss KPI, I would first lead with positive reinforcement. On your next one-on-one with them, if missing KPI is new to them, I'm going to show them like nothing but confidence in their ability. I'm going to give them the best pep talk he's ever heard, smack in the ass, like, we got this, dude. And then just dive into what needs to be worked on. So we're still having like action items for them, action items for me, but it's like, let's just dive into the work. You got this. We got this. Let's do it. Now, if they continue to miss KPI after hitting it consistently for 2 consecutive months, so it's like, all right, this guy, Billy, was performing for January, February, March, April. Then he missed KPI in May. I have that one-on-one with him. He misses it again in June. That's where you got to do a PIP. And the length of the PIP should be anywhere from like 2 to 6 weeks based on how well they performed historically. And if they've been a B- for the most part, like they've been, good, not great. Once again, those people are dangerous for the organization. I'm going to make it closer to 2 weeks. If they've been an A consistently, like, no, this person has shown signs of greatness and has, done it decently consistently, it's going to be closer to 6 weeks. I'm going to give them more time to turn it around. And just diving back to the concept of PIP, it's a performance improvement plan. If you guys didn't know what that is, I open up the meetings the same way. I don't build like tons of rapport and I'm like talking about the weather and football games for 5-10 minutes and like awkwardly talking to them about like, how their job could be on the line here. I'm just saying like, how's your day going? Cool. Awesome. Let's just dive into this. I have a document that's prepared for it. I'm like, okay, Tom, like on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of seriousness of this conversation, it's about a 7. You're not getting fired or anything like that, but some things do need to change because I'm noticing really bad trends here. And I'm going to talk about what needs to change and when by, if you do want to remain in this role. So it's like, you're not getting fired, but like, here's what it is. You make the action plan I talked about. You book the next meeting on that call. Now, if they're showing alarming traits, because like I talked about, a lot of this stuff up here is qualitative. KPI is very, very quantitative. PIPs can still be for qualitative things, right? It doesn't just have to be for KPIs. So usually if it's a trait, like a quality thing, I'm going to have that one-on-one. I'm going to call it out very directly, but then I'm usually going to lead with a positive reinforcement and just focus on the inputs. Like, hey, here's how you need to be showing up to team meetings. Here's what I want to see in terms of like, review one of your own calls, leave me notes, this and that. If things don't improve, then I'm going to PIP them. I'm going to focus on qualitative outcomes. And you're just immediately going to see if they want to keep the job and the job is on the line. It's amazing how quickly things get fixed. It's amazing how quickly that end of day type form comes out fresh off the press, 5 p.m. every single time. It's like, it's one of those things where you need to have these uncomfortable conversations if you want growth. Growth typically doesn't come with no discomfort. Now, at this point, you've got my proven approach for hiring a killer closer and how to spot a bad one before it's too late, before it's cost you too much revenue. However, hiring is just the start. You need a complete system to build out a top tier sales team consistently. So stick around, watch my next video on my exact system for building A+ sales teams, learn how to structure a team that drives results. Links on the screen now. Let's keep crushing it. Peace.